May the Lord give this council the wisdom, discernment and courage to serve the community. Grant also that we may act compassionately and in integrity in the best interest of this Shire through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I would like to show respect and acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land and elders past, present and future on which this meeting takes place. Thank you, councillors. Okay, thank you, councillors, for the extraordinary council meeting. We try and not make a habit of this, but I believe it's certainly important enough to hold this meeting. Okay, Mr. General Manager, application for attending meeting by video link.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Belinda McKenzie has requested that she attend via video, so we'll need a resolution to allow her into the meeting.
Can I have a mover, please? Move Councillor Williamson, second Councillor Campbell. All in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Apologies for application for leave of absence by councillors.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Elizabeth Flaherty is still on extended leave.
A mover. Move Councillor Campbell, second Councillor Williamson. All in favour? Against? Carried. Public participation. We've got Mr. Patrick Ryan for the recommendation in front of us, councillors. So, Pat, I'll ask you to come up to the mic, please. And you get 5 minutes to speak. After 4 minutes, you'll hear that and we'll...
Okay, that works. Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, General Manager, staff, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak for this motion today. I probably should just quickly introduce myself for those that don't know me. I'm a grazier of approaching 2 decades based out of Merriwa. Perhaps should also mention that up until very recently, I was the chair of the local branch of New South Wales Farmers for the previous 8 years. I'm speaking today in personal capacity. I'm not representing anybody or any organisation. And what I want to reflect on is experience that I had through my involvement with New South Wales Farmers in particular, going back to the drought that we went through 2017 to 2019. I'm sure that's still fairly fresh in most people's minds. What actually occurred in that instance was we were obviously in the grip of a drought. We're in an area that we perhaps hadn't been for quite some time. This council was actually involved and participated in a forum that was created. I believe it was initiated through a local stock and station agent, Mr. Peter McCallum. He hosted that meeting. It was attended by the then Mayor and General Manager of Council, our state MP for Upper Hunter, the Deputy Premier at the time, Joe Barilaro. There are a number of stock and station agents, as I said. There was also some key primary producers from the district that participated in that from various sort of backgrounds. Robert Gill, Anto White, the Lee Warner family. There are a number of people that were represented there. LLS were also there, and other key agencies and stakeholders. The importance of that was that what it actually did was create an opportunity where the state actually recognised that that this district, in particular, sort of Scone Bunnan, really kicked off that drought, which was very devastating, was very deep and wide in the way that it hit the community, not just in this area, but ultimately in the rest of the state. There are a lot of learnings that came out of that. Part of the discussion that we had at that point in time was around the type of support that was going to be needed to be able to move forward and get through that, particularly dire situation. Some of those recommendations were taken on board. I suspect some of them were probably already in train, and it was just a catalyst to move those forward. And I think we're at a similar position today, and that's the context that I would present that in. About 3 or 4 months later, that particular forum, for want of a better description, was reconvened. In the ensuing period, the state government made some announcements for support, taking a lot of the recommendations were put forward. Specifically, some of the things that were done, and I think it's important of the context of what we're asking here. We had the Regional Investment Corporation, we had Farm Household Allowance, we had a number of initiatives like that were created. Some of them took a considerable period of time to roll out. That was the big challenge at the time. We all know that a situation like drought is very insidious. It creeps up very quickly, but when it does, it's all surrounding. And there's another underlying theme that I think we should always bring to the fore is the impact that it has on mental health. And I think that's a key undertone that sits through all of this as well, and what we're trying to achieve here. So I point to those things. There are another couple of initiatives that came out of that as well. Things like the new method for developing or drought indicator, that the what's it called? The combined drought indicator, which we're fundamentally relying on now. And I think that's a key topic of what we're addressing here today. How long have I got? Okay. It's really a question of, is that tool appropriate? And is it serving its purpose? I would suggest not. I won't bore you with the details of the CDI. I could go through it in some detail. But at the moment, what it actually says, if you have a look at it, is that the vast majority, there's only, I think, less than 2% of the state is currently identifies a drought status of any type. It's clear that this particular area is not. It's not even in an approaching drought situation. It's actually non-drought. That can't be. We need to address that, and that's really what we're asking here. The forum that's being asked for, who you bring these people together, I think that's critical. I think that should happen now. What we have learned from the past experience is that early intervention gives a much better return. I believe we actually have the instruments in place. I do have a recommendation for the motion, if I may be so bold, and that is to simply say that I don't think asking for specific or being so prescriptive around item 4 is necessary at this point, but I'm happy to perhaps answer that if someone's got any questions about that. Maybe I can deal with it in a Q&A environment. I'm going to wrap that up there.
Thanks, Pat. If you had more to say, Pat, I can put it to the councillors, but if you're happy with your presentation, which I think you've explained it very thoroughly, but if you want more, I could ask the councillors to give you an extension. I think it's a very, very important motion, and it's going to affect our show.
I appreciate that greatly. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Burns. Got to second that. Councillor Williamson, all in favour? Against? Motion is carried.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just moving forward that point a bit further, as I said, we've got things like we had the Farm Innovation Fund, Farmhouse Whole Allowance, the Regional Investment Corporation, and so forth. Those things took a long time to implement. You don't do them overnight. And I think that it's critical that we do identify. We need to investigate, why is there not a identified as drought at the moment? There's no such thing as a drought declaration anymore. We rely on feedback and input from agencies and so forth. And the central piece of that is this combined drought indicator. We need to have a look at that. It's clearly not working. I think that's a conversation that we need to have with all the agency authorities immediately. In terms of the ask around support, I think all of those things are in place. There are measures that once we actually identify that a drought exists, those agencies can roll this out very quickly. I don't think we need to be prescriptive at that point. At this point, I think that will happen naturally. I think the really key issue here that we need to drive home very hard is to get people here on the ground, clearly do some ground truthing as to why this CDI is not currently working, and make sure that early intervention does start and the appropriate measures can be rolled out as quickly as possible to get value from whatever investment that is of taxpayer dollar in supporting this situation. So as I said, I'd be so bold to make a recommendation that perhaps it could be a minor alteration to the motion if the mover would consider that, and if I could be so bold as to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Just stay there. I'll just ask councillors any questions. First, I'll start off, Pat. Thanks very much. I mean, that was a very good, and you certainly understand the importance of this. As I said, I was at those meetings back in the last drought, and it's the only way to get people to listen is make a noise, and we're making a noise for good reason, because if people want to travel the whole Shire, not just parts of it, we're going to be in a bit of trouble, I believe. Councillors, Councillor Burns.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Pat, thank you very much for coming over. I know we had a chat yesterday, but I'd just like to ask and qualify your statement there. Would you remove point 4 altogether from the motion?
That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Pat, for coming across. One of the things I think that is really important that has been dropped by the government. I was on the Pasture Protection Board, the LHPA, then the LLS, Hunter LLS. And one of the things that each director had to do each month was to report to the chairman on the conditions that we had. We had an abundance of feed, et cetera, so that it was on the ground. Now, I believe that that can work again. Instead of saying, look, you can get, there's got an app, you can go and get on there, designate people from each area, right out there at Castless, right over here at Carr Springs, right over here in the Timor area and Murrurundi area. So it's up to them to go, and if it's known, they can then report to the DPI and or report to the LLS. It could be done through the LLS because we did it very well in those days. But so that they know what's happening on the ground. I also remember I was at that particular meeting with John Barrett.
Can you got a question to Pat?
Yep.
Yeah, put the question through.
Okay.
And then we'll bring this up when we open the discussion.
Okay. Would you the designated people, how do you feel about that of each area of the Shire? To report to the authority regarding the conditions.
I think you raised an important point. There is a farm app, which was an initiative which was rolled out as a consequence of the last drought. That was along with the CDI. That involves farmers actually going on and self-reporting on a regular basis. I would go back one step. That's possibly a good initiative. I don't think many people know about it, and I suspect that there's not very much data in it at all. So maybe that's something that could be improved, but certainly a more structured way of reporting and as you said, ground truthing on the ground, because it's very clear at the moment that the CDI is not a reflection of the state of the season, which goes back to November 2022. There's something wrong, and I won't go into the detail, but it's very accessible. It's a 5-step, fairly complicated matrix of indices that they use to create that CDI. There's something wrong there. That's one issue, and that's one way of fixing it. And then, of course, what this motion is saying, and I believe is critical, is that we need those key stakeholders. We need them here. We need them here now. We need to explore these issues, have a look at it, and then say, well, okay, it's obvious that this is not a reflection of the current status that we are in. I think that's imperative.
Do you have any further questions, councillors? If not, thanks, Pat.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Okay, councillors, back to our agenda item, disclosure of interest.
Nil received so far, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, council, we'll move straight into the NM 08.1 notice of motion, drought conditions in the Upper Hunter Shire. I've got a mover, Councillor Burns. I've got a seconder, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Burns, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'll just open this up, Mr. Mayor. The notice of motion that we've put forward here today, and I thank Councillor Clout and Councillor McPhee for going along and getting the extraordinary meeting up. It is important that we start to do this now. I was asked, why didn't we wait 2 weeks? Well, you don't know. Drought might have broken by then. So, but number one, the Upper Hunter Shire needs to recognise that we're in a state of drought. And what does that do? Not a hell of a lot. But it is saying to the people that we actually understand, we're around, we see it, we're talking to people, we understand what's going on, we understand what they're saying to us. Call on our residents, very important to remember the Waterwise rules. Don't just use water. Murrurundi is still the lowest usage of water in the state because they remember what happened last time. Now, they've got a secure water source through the Murrurundi, the Scone to Murrurundi pipeline, but they're still worried about turning on the tap. We all need to be a little bit more like Murrurundi. Call on the New South Wales government to change the drought indicator to be a closer indication of what's actually going on in the regions by utilising farmer input and on-the-ground knowledge that can't be gained from a desk in Sydney. Mr. Mayor, as we've just heard from Mr. Ryan, that there is that ability, but it's still not being pushed by the DPI. The DPI needs to get out from behind their desks in Sydney or Tamworth or Orange and actually go out and see what the farmers like. Cities don't have droughts, although Tamworth's about to get hit by one pretty bad, I'm told. Their water source is fairly small. Now, I know that I've moved this, but I'm going to ask everyone to indulge me here. I will remove point 4 and make number 5.4.
Thank you, councillor Burns. You actually moved it, so you'd like to make that
Yeah.
move to
If I
take
can.
dot point 4 out,
Yes.
remove completely. Councillor Campbell seconded. You happy with that? So council, we're dealing with 1, 2, 3, and then 5 will come up to 4.
Yeah,
Correct?
Thank you. Now, number 4, which is ever important, and we haven't seen much of this government. They're a new government, but we haven't seen much of them this time. We call upon the Premier of New South Wales, the New South Wales Agricultural Minister, the Minister for Regional New South Wales, who is actually the same person, the opposition leader and the deputy leader of the opposition, to visit the Upper Hunter Shire and tour drought-stricken farms of all corners of our shire to see the devastation beginning to take hold. Now, I've got a quote here from this morning's Herald. I don't think it's even in this morning's Herald, Mr. Mayor. It was on the Newcastle Herald website. Farmers across New South Wales are a resilient bunch, and the New South Wales government is committed to supporting them to prepare for drought through agricultural research that helps farmers build on-ground resilience. That was the New South Wales Agricultural Minister. So they're going to help us with the drought's here. The research is not going to help. It will help in the future, yes, but we need you here now, and we need you to do something about this. If that means that you've got to come out and declare us in the drought yourself, Madam Minister, then I invite you. I will go down to Newcastle, down to Sydney, and pick you up if you need. I do not mind, but we need this action now, and it needs to be done in a way that we can actually help our farmers. Because if our farmers go down, our hairdressers go down, our farms for fashion, they won't have anything. Dusty Diamonds, Kelly Street will be gone, Main Street will be gone, Beddington Street, nothing. We need these things. That's why you support your farmers, because they support everyone else. I think I'll reserve till the last, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Burns. Councillor Campbell, you wish to speak?
Yes, I'd just like to, as I mentioned, perhaps prematurely to Pat regarding the way in which that this notifying the department of the severity of drought and the conditions, and I just think that should be explored more, because if designated people then they know that's part of their job, they will then submit those returns, whether it be on a 3-monthly basis or 2-monthly basis. It doesn't matter, but those people then, it's a reminder that it can work, and they can give an indication and a report on the conditions, whether they be good or bad, to the government. At the present time, I think Councillor Burns reiterated the fact that the idea that they have just having an app can work, but it's not rolled out very well. But I believe it should be extended to the designated people of the area. I think then that particular part would be overcome. So yeah, I support the motion, and also the motions, and also the way in which that the 3 councillors got together and got this motion up. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Campbell. Any other councillors? Councillor McPhee, speaking for, no doubt.
Funnily enough, yes. So one thing I think this app's probably not going to have any idea about, I think essentially there are 4 types of conditions. The ideal one is when you've got feed on the ground and you've got water in your dams. The other 3 are basically drought. When you have no feed and you have water, you have feed or you have no water, or you have no feed and no water. And we're gradually coming to the latter. We've actually had 3 years of the latter, and we had a lovely couple of years where we had rain, and now we're back to before. But while we've got we're hoping that our Premier of New South Wales comes to visit and his entourage. I'd like to actually request that he would also look at the following while he's here, because in the recent following decisions that have been made affect the regional area differently to urban areas. The travel card has been changed to the fuel discount card. Currently, if you have that and you're actually eligible for that, you can redeem it at specific fuel stations, the closest of which from here is 30 kilometres. So for me to actually get my discounted fuel, if I were one of these people, I'd have to travel 30 kilometres to access it. Not a problem that they would have in the urban areas. The activity vouchers that have now been slashed to $50. These are things that, once again, we don't get in these areas. We don't get the services that are afforded in the urban areas. And that's why it's so important for us to rely on our community. In the Upper Hunter, sport plays a massive part in building that. The reduction in these activity vouchers compromises the participation for all of our residents. Muswellbrook Hospital, stage 3, finance reduced. May I say any more to that? Education. With a plan to increase the workforce in regional areas through immigration, the Minns government needs to preempt the further need for services. And this includes health and education. At present, the only language immersion programs are based in Sydney. How am I going to tell that to a Chinese family with their daughter who's got not one word of English, that she should technically go to Sydney every day so she can actually enter into our education system? We will never have equal services between urban and regional New South Wales, but these decisions are compromising the equity. So I'd like to ask the Minns government, have they dismissed us or simply forgotten us?
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Any other questions, comment? No, just before you do, Councillor Burns, look, I certainly agree. Last week, 1,200 head of cattle at the Scone Sayards, again, future breeding stock getting sold because there's no government support at this stage. So, maybe if the government can give some producers some sort of support, maybe they can reassess where they're going. I mean, everyone's got different ideas and different management, but it's so important. We've been there and done it. Councillor Burns, you're closing the motion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, look, this one's simple. It really is simple. Come out, have a look, have a yarn. We'll find some farmers for you. There's plenty of them around here. 1.77 billion in GDP we put into our shire, put into the economic growth of the nation. We don't have mines here in our shire. We do farm for a living. That's what we do. That's how we enter the world. Now, the thing that I'll close on, Mr. Mayor, is this is an investment in future on health. If we get this right, if the government gets this right now, Mr. Mayor, they are investing on future mental health because there won't be a problem in that area. Farmers have a higher rate of mental health issues during a drought than any other industry. It is just up there. Now, I'm a veteran. I've seen mental health issues. I've lived through this drought. I'm not a farmer. Don't have a clue. Wouldn't opening a fence, opening a gate. Don't even know how to do that. I'll get my kids to do it for me. It's something that we need to do. It's an investment in futures. It is something that we can do, and the government has the ability to do. They just need to want to do it. So come out and help us help you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I think we've all had a pretty good say there. So we had a mover, we had a seconder. All in favour? Against? 0. The motion is carried. Looking forward to some visits in the near future. Thank you, councillors, for your time, and we declare the meeting closed.